Good morning, everybody. Good morning. This is Apostle Crystal Lee, and we are here for 111 days of kinetic prayer. Yesterday, after we got off the live, I was kind of leaning towards corporate prayer this morning. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have some conversations about some things. But we're also going to take some time to just gather and approach the throne on some matters, on some different things that we've already talked about. So we want to take the time to do that this morning. I felt a real push because some of these things need to be solidified. Some of these things need to be cemented in the hearts and the minds of the sons. And so we want to just take some time to meditate on the word that the Father has given us all. Tomorrow's the Sabbath. And after that, we'll go back into some of the things that we've been discussing. But today we want to take some time to go back over in prayer. You know, we're talking about the prophetic, right? When we're dealing with the prophetic, prayer is an integral part of the prophetic lifestyle of a believer because it's in that place that we begin to define things. It's in that place that we inquire regarding things. You know, it's in that intimate space that we seek out, we knock, we ask. You know, ask, seek, and knock. That's the place that we do that. And the word declares to us that if we ask, we'll receive an answer. If we knock, the door will be open. And if we seek, we find. The Bible also discusses the fact that the Father wants to be sought after. So he says, listen, if you seek me, you will find me. So we want to have some conversations this morning in prayer. And we've learned a lot about prayer and kinetic prayer. So we're not here begging. We're not here doing any of that. We're here having discussions about certain things specifically and inquiring regarding certain things. And even in some cases, some of us will be interceding. I can't hear you guys on that side, but you know, intercession is about interception. So some at some points will be interceding on the behalf of. So he's giving me this phrase in this season that even greater defines intercession. It's taking up arms against an enemy of the brethren. So if I take up arms against an enemy of yours, I'm interceding for you. I'm intercepting. David, we've been talking about the mighty man. When we look at David's intercession on behalf of Israel was the fact that he could hear the Father, and he was strongly opposed to what the adversary, that Philistine, was saying and doing concerning the people of Yahweh. Strongly opposed to what was going on. He took great offense to the fact that there was a challenge being made on that level, because the challenge that was being made was an attempt to bring Israel into a space of captivity. It was also an attempt to belittle the God of Israel by saying that there is nothing strong enough to fight in this camp. That you don't have any weaponry, you don't have anything that could militarily stand against me. The thing that Goliath was not counting was the God of Israel. He was looking at their military force, he was looking at the numbers, he was looking at the height, he was looking at the physical strength of, but he was not looking at the thing that was in the invisible realm. He was not looking at the hosts of Israel. The host was not just what was on earth, but it was what was in heaven, because the Father had deemed them, his chosen people. He had deemed them ones that he wanted and desired to represent his name. So why would he want them to represent his name and not overcome? Why would he want that? We're going to talk about some things this morning. We are, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Hallelujah. I got Prophet Marlise here with me this morning. Good morning, Prophet.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank God for your presence this morning. I see
Yes.
you, Elder Vicky, and I see that there are a few people in the room. My sister, Prophet Monica, is in the room. Blessings, sister. There's some other people in the room this morning, which I cannot see at this time, but we thank God for your presence here. We thank God that you're here with us to share this time. We're in day 78 of the prayer. Wow. And day 73 of the fast. One of the things that came up in my spirit yesterday, and I wrote this in the description section: what is a winner without a race or a contest? Because oftentimes when people are challenged, they're not challenged, they don't feel the challenge to change. They feel like they're being chased, like they need to go and run. They need to hide. And there are times for running and hiding. Contrary to popular belief, David had a wisdom to understand that him being dead would not fulfill the prophecy of him being on the throne. Hello? So when I say running and hiding, that's not a complete way of life for the believer. We see even that with the mighty men when Shammah stands in the field. He says, "Not today." You're tired of running. Not today. You're not going to take this field over. We're going to eat. Not today. And so that was another form of intercession. As we're looking at the mighty men, this is a place where there is an intercession on behalf. Even when you look at the life of the judges of Israel, this was a life of intercession that they lived. All of the righteous kings of Israel lived lives of intercession concerning the people. Their lifestyle was that of intercession, right? The Mashiach, we know that his lifestyle was a life of intercession. Even the purpose that the Father formed him was for the purpose of coming on the behalf of sons in the name or the authority of his Father to reset us, to reestablish us. Good morning. Good morning, guys. I see Prophet Pastor Wilborn in the room. So we're going to take some time this morning. He said, what is a winner without a race or a contest? And a lot of people don't want to be in the race. They don't want to be in a contest. You know why? Because they don't feel like they're ready for it. But the reason why a lot of people don't feel ready is because they haven't made ready, haven't taken the time to be ready. It's the same thing with the test. You're very confident when you go in to take a test if you've done the work, if you put in the time, right? You're not afraid of the questions because you have actually put in the time to be able to have the information that you need to overcome, to pass. What's required in a race or a contest is the fact that you have prepared. You've had a regimen that has prepared you for that race, and each contest or race, there are different regimens that are necessary for those. Like I'm not going to run if I need to do some kind of contest that has to do with my, what do I want to say here? Well, but I do run when I do vocal stuff. The point is, depending on what regimen you have or what contest you're in, because even when you're boxing, running is a thing. Running is important because you want stamina. So running is a thing for a lot of stuff. Dealing with naturally, running is a core principle for a lot of different contests. Okay, but here's one. I'm not going to practice my my music agility on the piano for a boxing match. I mean, the truth of the matter is any of these things, depending on where your mind is and what you're using it for, could be used. But there are specific regimens or specific exercises that I will have to engage in for that specific, whatever that contest is. Like that doesn't work out my core. You know what I'm saying? If I'm lifting, that doesn't work out my core. If I'm boxing, I still have to figure out what those exercises, I need to know the regimen that's going to get me to the place that's going to give me the most strength in the core if I'm weightlifting. Absolutely. Now, piano might be one of the things that you need for mental, just for mental clarity, because meditation is a real thing when it comes to the sons of Yah. And the world understands meditation. Of course, they do it from a different perspective. You ain't going to war in a swimsuit. Thank you, Elder Vicky. We're dealing with the finality of things now, because there's a lot of things that you can do that are, principles that you're using to build whatever your strength is in whatever area. You can use a variety of things, but we're not going to war in a swimsuit. We're just not going to do it. We're not going to go to a car race on a bicycle or a motorcycle. They're racing cars. So everything that you're doing is requiring something specific. But you don't have a winner if you don't have a race, if you don't have a contest. And in contests, you need contenders. Where's any of it without the pain of training? Where's any of it without the pain of the training? We talked about that. Pain is simply the soil. See, it's a way that we have to look at things in the season that we may not have been taught to see a thing. If you're looking at pain as a problem, then you're right, it is a problem. But if you're looking at pain as the soil for the germination of the seeds that have been sown in you for the new you to break through the ground in the appointed season, then that's a whole nother situation. Today we're going to teach a little bit and corporately pray regarding the prophetic systems, dreams, visions, trances, imaginations, creation, and the prophetic word, receiving the word to manifest in prosperity in the prophetic systems of Yah. We're going to talk about a couple of things. Now, one of the things that the Father began to have a conversation with me about yesterday, it took me back to Genesis, right? It took me back to Genesis. And he began to have a conversation with me about the prophetic systems and their operations, right? We know that one of the first prophetic systems is to have a vision of something. That's one of the first, because this is what the Father did. He had a vision of something on his mind. There was a vision in his head. There was imagination at work and at play, because he was seeing a thing that had not yet formed. And in the seeing of the thing, he was able to say a thing. So he declared, let there be. Okay? As he declared, let there be, he had no question about whether the thing that he declared was going to be, was going to appear, because of who he was in that specific space. He was God over, Lord over the things that he was having a conversation about. Now, the funny thing about this is that he creates mankind and makes him Lord over, small g, over the things. He said, because I want to make something that's after my image and my likeness, something that's after the same, that operates in the same spirit and that has the same DNA, because if it has the same spirit and the same DNA, then it has the same authority. So he gives authority to the man, because everything is made after its own kind. Everything is made after its own kind. But he was taking me back through the prophetic system, and he was, just walking me through it. He said, now, everything that the Father ever created, I want you to think about this, every system that he created in the earth, every system, every kingdom that he created in the earth. We know that there's plant kingdoms, there's all kinds of animal kingdoms and creature kingdoms, all of these different things. But every living creature, I'm going to say it that way, every living creature that he created, if you've been with me for some time during the kinetic journey, then you understand that the creature is whatever is the living thing, right? The earth is a living creature. The waters are living creatures. And when he began to speak to each of these systems, each of these areas of creation, but there's something that he did with them. He defined them And then he declared that there be life in them. And the life was not just a little something, it was a multiplication. It was a multiplicity of things of different kinds, you know, but definitely water creatures, right? When he declared the water be, and the water was separated from the waters, and he declared that, you know, these are seas and the land appear and all of these things, he began to speak to the water that it began to bring forth life. So when we think about the water, there's all kinds of life in the water. There's not just one kind of fish. There's not just one kind of sea creature. There are all different kinds of sea creatures. You got the creatures that are for creating the environment or the ecosystem for the other creatures to thrive. And then you got the creatures that are predator, you got the creatures that are prey, you got all different levels in this ecosystem. And so I want you, as you're thinking about this, I want you to think about who you are as a son and what this looks like for you. Because we are the crown creation of Yah. It's funny to me. We're the crown creation. Every other part of creation, every other creature follows distinct orders of the creator. Now, are some things out of alignment? Sure, because, you know, if you go into the jungle, not necessarily you, because if you go into the jungle, you might get a different response than the average person. But if the average man goes into the jungle, they have a fear of the animals, and their fear is that they'll be eaten. Yet we have scripture that defines that animals don't necessarily have to eat mankind, because if mankind understands his authority over the living creature that he's been given authority over, then the animal understands his authority as well. Remember when he talked to Noah, he said the fear and the dread of every creature shall be upon you. That he understood and remembered the authority that he gave mankind on the earth. So we're afraid of things a lot of times that we have authority over. You understand? And so it's about getting in the right position. I believe one of the things that the Father wants out of the sons this morning is that we get in the right mind, that we get in the right position. So that as we're stepping into, because we love to talk about, and we talked about this the other day, this kind of lends itself to that. We love to talk about authority. We love to talk about dominion. We love to talk about power, but not many people step into it. It's like people not understanding the responsibility of things, right? We talked about that the other day. It's the same thing when it comes to spiritual things. If you don't understand the responsibility of things, you don't understand the price. You don't understand the weight that goes along with that. So once you start getting things, right, you don't know what to do things. You don't understand that there's a cost. And that if you're, you know, having to be shifted or moved, that you got to have a place for everything that's been given. And sometimes, okay, here's David. He's been anointed king. He's been given authorization to become something, yet it's not the time for him to step into his position. So he's still being the minstrel for Saul in that moment. He's still watching his father's sheep. He's got dual things going on. But then comes the trying of, or the contest, you know, of the situation that he's been called to, and now he's on the run. He can't watch sheep right now because he's got to run. He cannot be the minstrel for Saul right now because he's got to run. So when those things become disheveled or shifted, you know, we've been talking about how can we sing in a strange land. I know people love to be in that space, but I'm gonna tell you something. I thrive my best when I'm in right environments, in any capacity. I thrive my best when I'm in right environments. It's almost like my gifts don't fully work when I'm not in right environments. My gifts dumb down if I'm not in the right environment. They don't optimally work in the wrong environments. It's almost like the Father's like, nah, we're not going. It's like the same thing with the master. You're like, not in your hometown, because they don't believe, they don't see that part of you, so they can't have that part of you. They don't have an expectation of you in that area because they're too busy trying to colonize you. So let's go back to these living creatures. Every part of creation that the Father creates understands its operation. And sure, we understand that there were people that did have some issues with some animals, but they were not in their capacity as the man that they were created to be. They were operating in different capacities, you know. But the sons of Yah, you don't see, uh, you don't see Daniel being ripped apart by lions. You know. When it comes to elements, you don't see the Hebrew boys being burned by the fire. You don't see the children of Israel being consumed in the desert by any creature. You don't, because there's an authority that was given there. And so he took me back through Genesis, and I encourage you to go back through Genesis today, especially the first 3 chapters. Go back through there today as you're in this place of meditation on the word that we're going to bring forth this morning. Go back through there and just begin to see these systems at work. Go back and look at the systems at work, because you're going to begin to awaken and remember your authority in that space. You could go beyond that. Actually, if you go over past that and go maybe to chapter 9, that'll work too, because you'll also pick up Noah, you know, and that whole dynamic as well. But I just really felt the leading of Yah this morning to really just have some conversation about some of the things that we've talked about already and what those things look like, and just have some meditative position over it, like the prophetic system. What does that look like? I want to pray for the activation and alignment of prophetic systems in your life, such as the increase of dreams and visions and trances, and that you are using your divine imagination, and that you are understanding what it means to manifest the prophetic word. What do you need to become to do that? How do you need to walk? How do you need to align yourself? I want you to sensitively heighten to divine communication. I don't want you to be rigid in one space, like, oh, he only talked to me like this. I want you to be open, but I also want you to understand the difference between the things that you're hearing, because a lot of times, I'm telling you right now, a lot of times we're hearing things, we're always hearing things, but we're not deciphering the things that we're hearing. We just automatically think because we're sons, then we couldn't hear anything else. And that's a lie. You could actually hear something else. The Bible says that another voice you won't follow. It didn't say another voice you won't hear. Hello? He said, my sheep don't follow strangers. It didn't say you wouldn't hear the voice of strangers. Let's talk about the sheep gate for a minute. Because when people came into that area where they were going to the marketplace, they would bring their animals, their sheep, to the sheep gate. That means everybody's sheep were mixed together. Do you know that those sheep heard many voices during the day? But the voice that they responded to was their shepherd. That's the voice that they responded to. They heard other voices, but they didn't respond to but one. And this is why the word of Yah discusses that we are to bring every thought captive. Sometimes we get over in these areas and we go, I don't listen to no other conversations. No, these entities, these deities are trying to have conversations with you. And they will speak in a manner that seems familiar to you. They'll speak in a manner that seems familiar to you. In order to get your covenant on the matter. In order for you to come into covenant with them, they've got to speak in a way that you understand, in a way that you function. So if help is how you function, you know, if you know that you're a wife, let's just use that. If you know that you're a wife or a husband, right? Okay, that's a given. But now to whom? Because that means that's going to take some definite deliberation. That's going to take some clarity on defining some things, because I've got to identify the purpose and the vision that I'm given to. And then if something approaches me, I'm dealing with it from a woman's perspective and says, I'm your husband, or I'm your mate, or I believe you're my wife, or, you know, they don't have to necessarily say those words, but the approach is that, right? Then I've got to weigh that concerning the thing that I'm called to. Does this fit the vision? Does this fit the purpose? Do I fit that vision? Or what is that vision? And oftentimes, as a woman, one of the things that we overlook is whether a person comes with a vision or not. What's the vision? What's the plan? What are we doing? Right? But I've got to define that, because the lack of defining that is going to put me in a situation. Ask me how I know. And here's the thing, though. First scenario was just pure ignorance. Second scenario was pure deception. Okay? So it's some things that got to be defined when we're approaching situations, when we're dealing, even when we're dealing spiritually with situations. We got to define things. And this is why it's important that we go into a space to inquire of Yah. What does this look like? Even when we're dealing in our natural lives, I ask questions because I have a motto. If I can't define it, I have to decline it. I don't, listen, if I don't have no definition for that, I decline, because that's what your credit card gonna do. If it cannot define the amount of money that you're pushing those buttons and saying you need to use, if it's not there, it's gonna decline it. It cannot define that amount and line it up with your card. So it says, decline, right? Prophet Marlise, I'm gonna let you say something to the people this morning, and then we're gonna jump in. I had some things that I had gathered, and those things are missing this morning, but the Father is going to lead us in the direction that He needs us to go. Prophet? Prophet Marlise, you are on mute, sister.
Amen. There we go.
Okay.
Amen. Praise God.
What's your thoughts on these matters this morning, Prophet?
My thoughts on the matters are, we have a nation of people that are a part of, that are the sons of Yah.
Yeah.
And we have to really analyze, consider the matters of our position as the sons of Yah. And what that means. What does it entail? And be more committed to it. It's not just to accept a title, say, oh yes, or oh yes, I am. But actually be activated. To know our stance, to know our positioning, to know the task, the missions, the assignments, and to implement them in the manner in which we're supposed to. Not how we feel, not what we see, but how we're supposed to, based on the instructions and the guidance of Yah.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of us are playing. A lot of us are relaxing. A lot of us are taking the position for granted. And it weakens the body. It causes the body to have defect, if you will. We'll be out of alignment. The posture is off. The footing is off. The grip is weak. And if the body can't stand firm, and if the body cannot yield the sword and hold the shield, if the body can't fit in the armor correctly, there's much that would be lost. There was much that would
You know,
become
it's interesting
spoils.
that you mentioned that because when it came to the mighty men, because of their training, because of their belief system, see, it was something about training. You know, if you are a person that is, let's say you are um, being trained as an Olympic medalist, right? You have to first believe that you can win. You know what I'm saying? There has to be some kind of mindset about your capacity before you even step into that regimen, before you even step into that training. Nobody goes and trains for the Olympics if they don't believe that they can be an Olympic medalist. You understand what I'm saying? And it's almost like we got a lot of people who are operating in areas of uncertainty when it comes to spiritual things. They're operating in areas of uncertainty. They're not sure of anything. Well, a lot of their uncertainty is a lack of information, is a lack of, spiritual education. And sometimes it's miseducation. That's where the void is. But you don't step into that space without the idea that, you know what, I can become a contender in this area. I have a gift, I have a call. Now I've got to cultivate the gift and the call, and I could actually compete. Many people don't understand that when they step into the space of prayer, when they step into these different spaces concerning spiritual things, that they are competitors in a dark space. You're competing. You are dealing with um, other dimensions. You're dealing with other deities. But if you don't understand that you've been given a seat above them, then you take a seat below them. Inadvertently, you begin to sit in a space that is not designed or assigned to you. You understand what I'm saying? And so the power in prayer for a son is the realization that I have fellowship with the God of gods. He's my daddy. He's my father. And I can step into his room and have conversations with him that move things. We can go back and forth because he's talking to me about what his desire is, and I'm repeating his desire in the earth. And I don't have a doubt that it's going to be accomplished because I'm repeating his desire. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah. So with that, the acknowledging that we are the sons of Yah, we are his people, that we are the sheep of his pasture,
Yes.
and that we have free reign of this dominion, that we've been given an authority, that we've been given instructions, and that based on those instructions, we have a liberty So we stand in the liberty of authority in this dominion as Yah has given. We operate under his banner. We fulfill the missions and the assignments and the instructions he has given. We keep our eyes on the captain because he's our guide. We hear his voice because he is our commander. There is no other commander.
Mhm.
There is no other name.
No other authority.
No, yes, no other authority that we answer to other
So
than Yah the Father
answering.
himself.
So if we talk about answering to other authorities, let's just bring some clarity to that, prophet. Do we answer to the authority of sickness?
No, sickness has to answer to us.
Do we answer
Uh,
to the authority of fear?
no, because fear has to stand down
Because we operate in faith, right?
because we operate in faith. Yes.
That's how we walk, by faith. We don't walk by what we see.
No,
Do we answer to the authority of lack?
no. Lack has no stronghold on our destiny or our purpose. It has no effect on our growth.
Just things to ponder this morning, because we are declaring sonship, and now we've got to declare within ourselves what that looks like. What does it look like to be the son of a king or the child of royalty? What does that look like? You certainly aren't the common. Common would be everything that's not in the family, that's not in the kingdom. Current is everything, or common is everything that's outside of the kingdom. But inside the gate, things run a certain way. Things look a certain way. Things follow certain protocols.
One of the things that we have to understand is that even though we are the sons of Yah, that we have an inheritance and we have an authority and that we are not common. It doesn't mean arrogance, pretentiousness, puffed upness, worldly pride, and false positioning. It doesn't mean those things.
Those things are
It
absolutely
doesn't it doesn't mean that your liberty, you take the divine liberty that's been given to you
you use it
to
maliciously.
oppress, to suppress,
That's right.
to capture,
Mm-mm.
to control those that you're supposed to be drawing in
Or
because
believe.
we are fishermen of men still.
That's right.
There's no hierarchy because the one that's high is he, which is Yah, the Father.
There are capacities. There are leadership capacities.
Well, leadership capacities, yeah, but that's still, there's no one higher than him.
Right. Everybody is under the authority of, is what she's saying. When you pull
Correct.
that up, everything is under the same authority if we're in the same kingdom. Let's be clear. But see, this is an area that you also got to define, because if the fruit of a thing is showing, then you don't act like you don't see the fruit of it. We examine fruit. We're fruit examiners. It's a part of our job. He said, you'll know them, whoever them is, by their fruit. And as sons, we don't often exercise these areas that we've been given as measures, things that we measure things by. We don't measure things by the things that we're supposed to measure by. That's how we wind up in positions. That's how we wind up in stuff. And now we're trying to pray our way out of stuff, because we're not measuring things by the divine measurements that have been given to us. But when you think about David had a divine measurement to fight that giant. He said, what you're giving me is not what I've been trained in. So I don't want to add something in the war. Now, after war, I know what armor is, right? After war, okay, I'm familiar with armor. That's cool. It's one of the battle tools. Got it. Swords, we're familiar with that after the war, because his men used swords. He trained them to do it. But before that, he utilized what he was given. Matter of fact, the only time he used the sword in that battle was after he knocked the giant out. Then he took his sword and cut his head off. That was his first introduction to swords. Before that, he was using his hands, rocks, all kinds, his slingshot. You understand? But his first introduction to a sword was in the battle, at the end of the battle. And it's that same sword that he got when he went to the priest, because they put it up. When he came through there, they gave it to him so that he could go and fight. But prior to that, that wasn't what he used. So it's about understanding whatever the weaponry is for each time, for each season that you're in, knowing what that looks like. Knowing what that looks like. And not using your sword or your battle tools on the people that you're fighting for. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's okay for you to make disillusions your enemy. You can disillusion your enemy. Okay? That's legal. Because that's what they like to do, right? They like to bring the distraction. They like to do all that. And so the Father allows us to identify the tactics of war. There are tactics of war. Confounding enemies is a tactic of war. That comes from obedience, but you're not trying to confound your brethren, are you? The ones you fighting with and for, you confounding each other? Subduing each other? No. We got to pay attention to the fruit of things. Because going back to the heart being deceitfully wicked, that scripture that talks about the heart being deceitfully wicked, who can know it? That don't just mean wicked as in you looking to strangle somebody, or wicked as in you looking to badmouth or slander somebody. It's not just talking about those things. The deceit of the heart can put you in a position, because you have a sensitive or a tender heart, that puts you in a position of abuse. If you've been abused and you haven't dealt with those abuses, maybe you've forgiven, but have you uprooted the seed of that abuse? Because if not, you'll keep attracting the same abusers, just on different levels. And because your heart is tender, that's how the Father made it, and you don't have discernment, and you're not identifying fruit, then you'll get into situations And you'll be further abused and not know why you're being abused. You won't understand it. Oh, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. What's this about? You could be in the wrong space. You could be doing the wrong thing with the wrong people. I mean, this is just my experience over and over again till I learned it. And now I'm very quick on my response because it's not your discernment doesn't mean that you're going to be prevented from going into every situation. These are areas that people get confused. You understand? Because I discern it, that means I won't step into it. No, you might not discern it until you step into it. Some things you don't realize until you're standing in it. Then you can say, "Oh, okay, yeah." So no, it's a no for me. No, I'm coming out of alignment with this thing. I come out of covenant with this particular mindset, this particular way of doing things. I mean, no. And as you're growing, you're beginning to identify things more readily before you step into it. But that is a training ground. The Father's not going to make you not step into something. I hope you understand what I'm saying. All of this is about training. But if you see training as a problem, then you'll never learn from the spaces that you're being trained in. Because He knows where we need training the most. He knows what's going to make us better soldiers. He knows. I want to go here really quickly. We've been talking about prophetic systems. We've been talking about these different things. So I want to throw out a couple of things regarding the prophetic systems, and then we're going to get into some specific meditation and prayer on these matters that we've talked about. 10 prophetic words that come off the top of my head. I'm going to give you a couple of them. I wrote them down. Adam. Now understand, a prophetic word can be correction. It could be instructional. It could be revelational to take you to a place. It could be directional. Okay. So I want to read this one. The word that the Father gave Adam in Genesis chapter 2. He said, "You can eat of every tree in this garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die." You know that anything that comes from the mouth of Yah is prophetic. It is a performing word. It's going to perform something. It has a prophetic nature. It is the foundation of prophetic nature. So when He said, "If you eat that, in the day that you eat of it," that's funny to me that He said, "In the day that you eat of it," but that's another conversation. You're going to die. Surely, certainly. Death not just meaning physical death, because now that's going to become the journey of something, but separation from me, separation from the place that I've called you to, is a death. Because you're now no longer in this space where you're operating in your dominion, in your true authority. And He said something to him. He said, "From the sweat of your brow, by the sweat of your brow, you're going to till the ground and you're going to get from it. But it's going to be because you work really, really hard." But then look at what He said to Cain, though. I'm going to give you 2 things that He said to Cain. I'm going to start with the whole conversation that He had with Cain about the earth is not going to yield for you. He said the earth is not going to yield for you. He said this punishment is too hard. But He told him from the beginning, He gave him a prophetic word. He said, "Listen, you have authority over, dominion over this authority that's trying to have authority over you, that's trying to get you in the position of killing your brother." He said in Genesis chapter 4, verse 7, He said, "If you do well, you'll be accepted." In other words, if you align yourself with what I'm saying and with what I'm giving you, then you will be accepted. It's not about the fact that you are in your feelings about this gift that I rejected. What you need to do now in the space of rejection is find out what I accept. Are you listening? What I accept. And why am I sharing this with you? Because we don't inquire, we don't delve far enough into the thing to identify and to let Him speak back to us about where we. So if we say, you know what, if I messed up, if I missed it, we say things like if I messed up, if I missed it, forgive me. Okay, but are you going to sit there long enough for him to tell you where you're missing it and where you're messing up so that you don't come back to that space? Can he say to you, this is the area that's an issue for me? And I need you to bring order to this area. I need you to spend some time on this right here. Renounce this system of doing things and come into the system that I have prepared for you to do it from. Let the wicked forsake his way and the unrighteous man his thought. Let him return unto Yah, and he will abundantly pardon. Right? Noah. For in 7 days I will send rain on the earth. 40 days and 40 nights, and every living thing that I've made I will blot out from the face of the ground. Genesis chapter 7, verse 4. But listen, before he even got there, he released a word to Noah that gave him a blueprint for something that somebody had never seen before. But if he could not grasp, if he could not grab, or if he didn't have the capacity cognitively to accept that prophetic word, not only the people that the father killed would have been killed, but his whole family would have been. There would have been nothing, no air in the earth, which is why there's a big deal here. When we talk about earth and when we talk about sons, the sons are those that are heirs. The earth is an inheritance of ours. You got to think about that when you're thinking about anything. You've got to know what inheritance looks like. To abandon inheritance is not a thing that the Father desires for sons to do. We don't abandon inheritance. This is the inheritance. And so what is the job of sons? To occupy until he comes. Now, what is he coming for? And why are we occupying? And what does the occupation look like? It looks like trade and commerce. I keep saying this, but I know there are a lot of people who still don't get it. Have you established business? Do you have the proper things in place to say that you have one? Because here we are in a space right now, and I've seen this space many times, where the Father's saying, I'm getting ready to release something, but a lot of people are not in position. They are not in position to receive anything because they don't have the proper things in place to be able to receive it. Not going to stay there long. But do you know big money doesn't move from person to person, it moves from business to business. I'm going to leave that alone. Abraham, Genesis 12:1. Moshe, Exodus 2. Saul, 1 Samuel chapter 10. David, 1 Samuel 16. There was always a word before there was manifestation. And so as sons, we need to be able to receive the word that brings manifestation, that brings forth life. Father, we give you praise this morning. We give you glory. And we give you honor for the things that you have spoken to us in this season. The things that you have declared to us in this season. Your declaration of these things as a king cannot return void. Can't be rescinded. Now we can accept or reject the things that you've spoken to us, which gives us a specific position, whether we're going to live according to what the king has spoken or we're going to live according to another system. But the results are going to be predicated on what we accept and reject. So this morning, we stand in the authority. We don't have to take authority when we've been given it. We stand in the authority that you have given us as sons of Yah. We stand in the authority that you've spoken, that you've declared concerning us. And we are sitting and thinking about and pondering and remembering this morning as we sit on our beds. As David said, as I sit on my bed, I ponder. We're sitting in the space that we're sitting in, remembering, pondering, meditating on what you showed us from the beginning. How you showed us from the beginning. And it's the same thing that we saw in all of the sons. Them having a vision of something, you giving or you revealing a blueprint for something, and them beginning to put their hand to the blueprint. Or if it was something that you wanted to do in the earth, in nature or whatever, them causing the sun to stand still. These things were not out of purposes, though. Because what separates the sons from other sons of another deity is the fact that whatever you do has purpose. These people are just operating in these things for the purpose of bringing attention to themselves so that they can collect souls for the other side. What we do is for the purpose that it become a glory and a praise to you so that we can bring souls to you so that they understand that there is a God that is concerned. There's a Father that loves and that desires fellowship and conversation, that desires an intimacy that produces something. So we thank you this morning for this time of kinetic prayer. We thank you for what you have called us to do in this time, which you declared it to be a time of annexing dark dimensions. This is a training ground. This has been our training ground for the years that are ahead of us. It's been an intensive for the years that are ahead of us. Even on the other side of this, we're not going to lay down what we've learned here. We're not going to stop executing the things that we've been given. We're not going to put our weapons down. We're not going to forget the things that we learned here. But we're going to exercise the things that you've revealed to us in this space. This should be our daily exercise. Our daily meditation should be on your word. And even as we started in this journey, there was a conversation about reading through the Bible. I declare that your people be those that are hungry for your word. That you, in this season, sons of Yah, will begin to have a hunger that you've never had before. Father, touch the palates of your people. By your spirit, I declare that the palate of the people would be changed. That the appetites of the people would be changed. That they would begin to have an appetite, a hunger, and a thirst for righteousness. Well, somebody might say, well, I am righteous, and I do have an appetite for righteousness. That is a growing appetite, and it takes us into the spaces that cause us to understand what the Father is declaring and to obey it. It's not just about how many scriptures we've read and how many prayers we prayed, but it's about how are we aligning with the will of Yah. So this is why the appetite is being prayed for, so that you begin to understand the alignment, that your appetite is about the alignment with Yah. So we stand in our authority this morning and we humble ourselves. We humble ourselves and we take authority that you've given us over every enemy. We stand in that authority. We exercise that authority. You see, even as I'm praying, he's changing the conversation because we've been used to certain things. There is a specific way that we have learned some things. And as long as we're alive, we're going to be unlearning things that we have learned. I promise you, there are things that are hidden in the recesses of our souls, things that are hidden in our recesses of our being that were put there, that were seeds that have been laying dormant, waiting on an opportunity. I don't need to take something that I have authority over. I need to stand in it. Mark that down in your heart and in your mind. You don't need to take authority over what you need to stand in. You've already been given authority. It's already been given. Now you have to realize it. You have to receive it. And you have to continuously operate in it. I want you to get in your heart and your mind the things that you know you need to stand in your authority over. Things that you've allowed to stand over you, but you really have sat and just allowed it to stand. The only reason it's been over you is because you wouldn't sit in the assigned seat. He said you've been given a seat in heavenly places. And that seat is far above principalities and powers. What are we talking about? We're not contending. We're above that. The biggest contest is with yourself, knowing who you are. That's your biggest battle right now. That's your greatest enemy. Identity is your greatest enemy. The lack of knowing who we are is the greatest enemy that we will ever have, because the moment we understand our authority, the moment we understand how we were created, the moment we understand what kind we are. He said to me, people are trying to be things that they weren't born to be. This does not just have to do with the LGBTQ. This has to do with sonship as well. But it covers all of it. Why are people trying to operate from places that they weren't created to function in? Because there have been no good examples of functioning in the proper place. When a person doesn't see how being what you say I am, or what I've been born to be, when they don't see how that works, when they don't have people before them helping them work through the traumas of or the issues that they've had as the person that they are, they don't see somebody that came out of the same trauma and stood in their manhood or their womanhood. They didn't have to cross any lines. They didn't have to go to something else. They didn't have to want to become something else. But they were able to overcome the trauma of what they went through and still be who they were born to be. They're like, nah, I can get with that. I can see that. Man, that was me. You mean to tell me I don't have to cross over and go to something else or do something else to try to quell the trauma that I'm dealing with? Because all you're doing is heightening the trauma. Being outside of how you were created as a son is trauma in itself. We thank you, Father. And we declare this to be a day of opening the eyes of our understanding. Your word declares that our understanding, that our eyes should be enlightened. That our understanding should be enlightened. We position ourselves this morning in the humble place, in the place of submission and humility. Because where you're taking the sons, we don't have time to be afraid. There's got to be some certainty. You know what I was thinking about yesterday, Acts chapter 10, where he says to Peter, rise, kill, and eat. He was dealing with a prophetic system of trances with Peter on top of a roof. Peter said, I don't eat that. When he showed him, he let the sheep down and put those animals on it. So Peter said, you ain't never taught me to do that. I don't do that. He said, you're not understanding the message in the system right now. I gave you something that I know you will respond to because you despise the thing that would defile. He said, now I've called you, I'm calling you to the Gentiles. Under normal conditions, you would despise that because that's an unclean thing for you because I called you to the lost sheep of Israel. But now I'm calling you to something that men would deem unclean from this perspective. He said, but I want you to not call unclean what I'm now calling clean. And that doesn't mean now you go eat whatever you want to eat because that wasn't the point of the vision. So people are killing themselves eating whatever they want to eat without any boundaries. That wasn't the point of this vision. The point of this vision was for him to get his attention and to help him to understand that the thing that was once unclean is no longer unclean. I'm saying, I need you to go to the Gentile. I need you to deal with something real quick. And he even sends somebody to his place for him to engage with. He said, I've never eaten anything that is common or unclean. So in this case, not just the uncleanness, but it's common. Anything that was outside of the kingdom is common. So when you hear the word Gentile or Goyim is the Hebrew word for it, that's common people, not chosen people. Anything that's not chosen is common. We'll talk about some more of those conversations tomorrow about the prophetic systems. But there are things that the Father says to us that if we don't vet it, then we'll project our own idea on that thing. And that'll take us into another identity. It'll put us in another position. But today we stand in our authority as the sons of Yah. Today we take the position that's been given. We accept the position that's been given as masters, as lords, and as kings in the earth. Say, well, how do you do that? Because there are masters, there are lords, and there are kings. And what does he say? I'm the king over kings, the Lord over lords, the master over masters. But we've got to humble ourselves to the position to understand the movement of the master in order to imitate the movement of the master. So may today be a day that you step into a new space, that you remember the space that you were called to, that you begin to identify your authentic identity. I want to say this before I get off, because I know we're about to close. He said this to me yesterday. He said, this is the hour that there will be reintroduction of you to those who thought they knew you. There's going to be a reintroduction of you to you before there's a reintroduction of you to those who thought they knew you. The question of who you are and whose you are will be answered in this season. He said, I'm elevating my people from the training place to the reigning place. And you ask why I define the place as a training, because only sons are being elevated in this season. And sons are those who understand that they were not on punishment, but they were in a training regimen that required them to push past the pain. Sons who understand the but for the joy that is set before me, I endured concept. Those who understand the divine principle of masters. Those who understand the practicality of pain for the perpetual propagation of gain. Where are champions without a champion? A winner without a race or a contest? And where is any of it without the pain of the training? He said the pain was the soil for the germination of the seeds that had been planted in you for the new you to break through in the appointed season. I declare peace to the house of the sons of Yah this morning. The body is not a weak thing. It is a weak thing. Blessings to all of those that are on. I see you, brother. Apostle Ben. Love you guys to life. I'll see you in the morning at 5 a.m. Peace.
Shalom, shalom.